addressing the concerns of students. How to be a successful student. Topics include time management, procrastination, motivation, to how to use the Amy method to achieve success. Here is your host, Dr. Marilyn Carroll.
Hi guys, and welcome to week 2. Business 526. You guys are doing a great job. We had 100% participation last week. And so if we continue on that path, we will be so successful in completing this course at a high level, and all of you guys can give yourself a pat on the back on that. Thank you so much for replying to the other students, for getting involved. Even though we might have done it a little bit late, you did it. And I'm so proud of you for that. Thank you so much. You deserve an award, and I think I'll send out one later today. So with that said, I wanted to talk to you about this week 2. Sorry that some of you cannot make the call, but I wanted to, again, talk to you about week 2. And so this week, I'm going to send you out an example post on the term where we talk about integrative, as we talk about integrative. The discussion post today says identify one negotiation that was integrative and one that was distributive, and use the 4 key steps in the integrative negotiation process from chapter 2 to identify the techniques and tactics that were used in your integrative example. Identify and explain the hardball tactics from chapter 3, that were used in your distributive example. And in addition to that, we ask you to respond to another student. So I want to talk about, there were 2 negotiations as an example found that I asked you. There was this article for one that one may post, but I'm going to post for you, like I said, an example of what was integrative and what was distributive, and how that was used in the discussion post, so that you can have that. I'll post that in the course room so that you will have that. And so if you have questions about it, you can just go from there. I know sometimes this course can be a little intimidating, but I promise you, you're going to have so much fun when you learn about all the different methods of integrative discussion posts and or just negotiations period, and how they work. And if any of you are in a sales role, you know kind of what's going on there, and how sales work from that perspective, and how you use negotiation skills from there. I know last quarter I had a number of students who talked to me about that, and kind of how they saw things and how they use the class to help them through a lot of the processes they were going to. Um, Another example could be we're talking a lot about global issues in the news these days. One thing is labor negotiations usually fall up on the distributive. And if you look at some of the articles out there was one European article that expanded into integrated between European organizations and employees. It identified and defined the problems. Employee cannot work in the office due to the pandemic protocols that were going on. And without employees working, the company will go under. Surface interest and needs was employees need to not lose hours and money. Company needs to stay in business and trust employees. Generate alternative solutions. Employees could work remotely if the company allowed. And then evaluate selective alternatives. So selected alternatives are employees work from home and get paid, or they do not go, and they do not, and the company goes under So that's a lose-lose situation. With integrative, you're coming up with ways to really make things work. And under distributive, recently there was a email from Honda telling that they were interested in 2020 CRVs, that they would load miles on trade-ins. Now, people are not trading in cars, but I know I was talking to my mother about this, and she says, "Oh, Marilyn, I got all this information on trade-ins, and I'm not selling my car, even though they offered an arm and a leg to for me to trade it in. What about that cost I got to pay to buy a new car? And then you're telling me you don't even have the pieces or the, I guess, is gadgets or some of the systems." Bugs or technology that's needed for some of the newer cars, and that's why people were having problems. And that could be a distributive. The hardball taxes used an example where low ball, high ball used for extreme offers to change the anchor of potential negotiation. The nibble effect was a small concession on a new item to close the deal, and this was to lower the payments and keeping that individual as a customer, which in this case was keeping my mother as a customer. And she was saying, no, 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 that's not going to happen here. I'm not going to be able to go through all of that. And these people are coming up with wishful thinking. So, yes, it could be something as simple as that, or it could be simple as buying a house and using distributive negotiations with that. Um, Going through the process right now myself of buying a home, another home, and I'm looking at, oh my gosh, this has become like a nightmare to really buy something and go through it. So, really, people are really going through challenges on some of these things. And, but at any rate, I wanted to talk to you about that. We're in week 2, and let's go back here and let me see. In week 2, you have to remember again that we're talking about distributive bargaining and integrative negotiations. And we're having our discussion pose. Our first assignment, aren't you excited? Our first assignment is coming up in week 4. So next week, we're going to talk about ethical considerations around negotiation planning and all of that. And then in week 4, when we talk about perception, cognition, and communication, we're going to go into our first assignment, the art of negotiations. And in that assignment, we're going to talk more about that next week on our coffee conversation. So if you're able to, please be here for that week, because we're going to go into some details and I'll answer any questions you may have about the art of negotiation, our first assignment, which is due in week 4. So make sure that you set aside some time to join me in week 4 to get that done and to really work on what's happening there. All right. Now, that's all I have for this week, other than to say again, great job. I am so excited that each of you took the time to post your assignments or your discussion pose before, by the due date. And we're really making great headwinds. I hope that you're meeting each other and kind of talking and making contacts and connections. This morning, I read a great, great article on Harvard Business Review, and that article was on really. Let's see. I want to make sure I get that article straight for you. It was an article on connections and how important connections are, and I provided a link on LinkedIn to that. It was the HBR tip of the week, and it talked about high performing teams focus on social connections. And you guys are a high performing team in this class in Business 526. And every leader wants to solve the puzzle of what makes a high performing team. One piece that often is missing is the importance of social connections. And in school, a lot of times people forget the importance of social connections in the classroom. So if you're trying to supercharge your team, your career, or anything else you're trying to do, you want to make sure that you are making great connections and you're staying connected. There were some awesome students in this class. You can see that from the introductions that individuals made. This is a master's level course, and of course, many of you are already in management positions. You're just fine tuning your educational skill sets and to get you on going to whatever your goals are for going through education at this point. So I'll leave you with this: invest time in bonding over the discussion posts. And the best teams aren't more effective because they work all the time. In fact, they're the more successful because they're discussing things that's related to books and educational material, and they're sharing their interests with one another, allowing them to connect in a genuine ways, which yield closer relationships and better uh, connections in work performance. To create a culture where expressing appreciation is a norm, recognition is often a more powerful motivating force than some monetary incentives. So remember that in your worlds of work, and acknowledge the good work that others are doing around you and make it a norm for your peers to express appreciation for you and one another. And the same thing here: express appreciation for the posts that your fellow students are making, and let them know how you really and appreciate some of the things that they're saying and posts that they're making, and how rewarding it is for you. And be authentic about your communication. It's important to that you feel comfortable expressing yourself in a positive way, as well as complimenting each other. So, with that said, I am going to close out our session with a little bit of more outro music. And again, I appreciate you joining
This
me
has
today.
been a production of 365 Inspirations, your daily dose of inspiration, with your host, Dr. Marilyn Carroll. Share the good news about our podcast with others. Follow us on TikTok at 3.
That's it, guys, for tonight. Thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting with you in the online discussion post. Take care.